I've picked up a new hobby.
Okay.
Knife sharpening. Sounds kind of nerdy. In fact, my wife she texted me on her way home. She's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Sharpening knives." She's like, "What?" She's like, "I'm not coming home." I'm like, "No, you're gonna love it."
You're like, not for that
That's
reason.
not what... Anyway, no, the reason I got into it is because I'm getting too much into it, but my chisels, I'm doing a lot of home repair right now, and my chisels were dull, and so I bought a whetstone to sharpen my chisels. I got those puppies like polished like a mirror, and they pretty much cut through wood like butter.
Okay.
And then I was like, well, I got this whetstone now, and all of my knives that I have, which are pretty nice knives, they're given to us as a wedding gift, they're completely dull. They're just pieces of metal that you run through something thinking you're cutting it.
Yeah.
And so I was like,
you're
well,
smashing a tomato, and you're like, it's cutting.
Pretty much, yeah. Your tomato comes out as mashed tomato.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so I was like, well, I should sharpen my knives. And I'm like, I don't know how to sharpen a butcher knife, a paring knife. I don't know how to sharpen any knife, kitchen knife necessarily. Because chisels, you got a nice jig. It's pretty easy to get it really nice and sharp and hone it really nice. Anyway, I'm getting really into detail on this for no reason. But sharpening the knife, so I started researching it, watching videos on YouTube. There's a lot of great resources out there. So if anyone wants to know how to sharpen a knife, good for them. But anyway, back to the opening of this piece, of this Real Talk, that got me thinking about, that's kind of become a hobby to me, because there's nothing more satisfying than like getting a really extremely sharp knife.
Okay.
Like I was cutting through a bell pepper and I was putting no force on it. It was just like slicing right through it.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, I was like, oh, that's cool, right? And so now it's kind of like with any hobby, there's a certain level of obsession, I think, that comes with that. And so that just got me thinking about, what hobbies do you find when your passion as a filmmaker moves from being your hobby into your career, and it leaves essentially a vacuum of hobby in your life? Because we all got started.
You turned your hobby into your career.
Right. So we all got started with filmmaking as kind of a hobby.
Yeah, yeah.
And
it was a fun thing we did on the side.
Yeah, and then we eventually were like, well, we could make a professional career out of this.
Sure.
And so we left room for new hobbies. So what are the hobbies that when you leave work here every day? Because I believe it's important to have something different than your day-to-day at work.
Yeah,
to try to seek that healthy work-life balance. And I think without things to occupy your mind and your time away from the office, then you just spend time thinking about the office, and your work-life balance gets way out of whack.
Yeah.
So it's good to have things at home to focus on. So what are some of the things you do hobby-wise?
I have a lot of hobbies, actually.
Yeah.
I try to put more emphasis on the hobbies that like still keep me creating something, because like one of my hobbies is video games. What? Magnets.
No, I'm sorry.
One of my hobbies is video games,
right.
And like that's a very good just like de-stressor and just like forget about everything. But at the end of doing that, I don't feel as rewarded as like if I spend some time drawing, or that's one of my big hobbies. One of my other big hobbies is like I build models, like like Gundam models and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then I build like costumes and stuff like Comic-Cons and whatnot. And my wife and I both do the cosplay thing, and that I think like doing those hobbies helps me de-stress and like do something other than just having idle hands at home.
Right.
But it still, I think, like, I guess keeps my creative senses sharp, because I'm still having to like problem solve creatively. I'm still having to think through things from a design perspective or color palette or whatever, right? But I'm not like tuned into filmmaking
to work.
Right. Because it's not making me think about.
Well, what's interesting is like we've produced some shorts and we've directed some short films over the years, and to me, we've always treated those as hobbies.
Yeah, right.
And it's interesting to me because it's like, what makes a hobby, right? Like, I think about that. Like, why?
What classifies it as like a hobby?
Right. And to me, it's like, I think what makes a hobby to myself
Yeah.
is when you don't necessarily mind if it gets finished that day or not. In fact, you might not even necessarily care if it gets finished ever.
Yeah. Well, and I think...
Because I think that level of pressure that you put on yourself, if I must finish this work, removes the clarity and the process behind it.
Yep.
Where it just becomes, now it's procedural, it's a process where I have to get this done. And so your mind isn't opened up to think freely. So like for me, woodworking is a hobby.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying I don't finish
projects.
I've built a table, I've built a guitar, I've built boxes and other little various things using power tools and such. And for me, it was always about the discovery of how could I make something, or how could I build it, versus how could I finish it.
Okay.
And so I think one of the things that we've struggled with when it comes to like our filmmaking is when we look at filmmaking as both a hobby and a profession. I feel like in the past, you and I, we haven't been on the same page all the time of what is a hobby and what is a passion, or what is a company what's work? Excuse me.
Right.
I think I said that wrong.
What's a company project and what is a personal hobby?
And I think, we made the conscious agreement to make this our profession.
Yep.
And I think with that, you kind of have to go all in. I think you have to even say, like, your short films can't be treated as hobby projects.
Yeah, right. Like, well, and I think that goes into ecosystem, which we've talked about before.
Yeah.
Is that, like, we didn't have the ecosystem to support creating narrative stuff here at the company.
Right.
It was like, well, you need to sell. So, if you want to write a short film, well, you can do that at home. Like,
well, we kind of built this company on that process of like, what we'll do is we'll work professionally as filmmakers to make money to then fund our films.
Yes.
And we said when the money comes professionally, we'll put that towards our film. But the problem is we never made that professional effort to say, well, how do we actually fund a film?
Right. And then when do you actually say now is appropriate time to take time off or additional time to do these projects?
And how much is an appropriate amount of the company's budget and cash flow to put towards this?
Because it's like, if there's no ecosystem of creation, right, outside of the stuff that we do for clients and customer relations and whatnot, if there's no ecosystem of creation, it's like you're not going to be, engaged to create. Because if you're being expected to create, but then being asked to do it at home as a hobby, those are two totally different worlds. Because I see what you're talking about now, as far as like, I feel like that is what makes a hobby, is like something that is just like, it's for you. It does nothing to progress you. It does nothing to like progress anything in the world. It is just a thing you do.
It's your release from your day-to-day.
Yeah. Which in that, I would even say, yes, I draw at home, but that even I would say is not a hobby anymore, because I take commissions and I actually do consider myself a little bit more of a professional artist at this point. Whereas like building a model, I've been working on the same model for months and months and months and months and months.
Care.
I busted it out last night and I got like 5 decals on, and I was like, I'm done. That's great for tonight. And I felt totally accomplished with that, because I was like, the only thing that this model is going to do when I'm done with it is go on a shelf and look cool.
Right. It's like being married to a plumber, but your sink is always dripping. It's like, because, and I have a personal story to that where, when I started in filmmaking, I started as a wedding videographer.
Sure.
Shoot these weddings. And when it came time for me to get married, it was important for my wife that I obviously couldn't shoot our wedding, so we hired some people in our network to film it, but I asked them for the raw footage because my wife wanted me to edit it.
Okay.
I have not edited it.
Yeah, never got done.
it comes down to that idea of like, I come here every day doing that.
Mm-hmm.
My everyday here is I have to put my filmmaking mind to work.
Yeah.
And when I'm home, especially now as my family has grown, there's barely enough time to do my own thing.
Yeah.
Like if I want to do woodworking or if I want to sharpen some knives, I mean,
or
I
go
can do
fishing.
that go fishing. In my opinion, hobbies are important for anyone in the creative field, for anyone in general. I think people need to make time for something that truly gives them the ability to almost reset. That moment of, I would call it relaxation, almost opens your mind up to take over. And I have found a lot of times that problems get solved here when I'm not thinking about it, when I'm doing something else.
Yeah.
And then I come in the next morning and I'm like, okay, here's what we do.
Well, so I think one that has really helped me a lot, because like I said, like the hobbies that I gravitate towards are the ones that still keep me, like, I think creatively sharp.
Sure.
Like kind of in the background, but really the end goal of it is not much. Is playing D&D.
Yeah, right.
Like, cause so I DM, like I do the Dungeon Master thing, so I have to write all the campaigns because I don't go out of the book.
Right.
And so I homebrew everything, and like so I have to write the campaigns, and I set music to it, and I make up side characters and all this stuff. So like, it's not doing much other than allowing like some really good friends to get together and have a good time, but what it is doing subliminally is keeping my writing skill sharp. Like I can kind of use Dungeons and Dragons
because
as
it's not your career. It's probably honing your writing skills more.
Right. Because I'm not worried about it.
Than if you were to write a feature film.
Yeah, I'm not worried about it necessarily being the greatest. It's like a splash page that I want it to be good, but I'm okay with it being like, oh, that one I messed up on, whatever. Right.
And I've always found that an interesting struggle of like when you make your hobby or a passion of yours your full-time job.
Yep.
I've always found that a very fascinating struggle of just like, how do you make this actually work?
Right.
Like, how do you do this?
Right.
And the solution to me is like, if you make that decision to make it your full-time job, you have to treat it as such. So if that means you in the next month want to write a screenplay, you got to make time at your company to do it.
Yeah.
And if your company can't afford you to do it, then now is not the right time.
Right. And be okay with that.
Right.
Like, so get another hobby, Well,
I mean, or like, because I have found that writing at home and saying, well, this will get done when it gets done, treating it like other hobbies, it just slows you down.
Yeah.
But if you can make time to do it here, at your place of business, and you can afford to do it, that's the appropriate time to do it.
If you want,
because then you leave space for those other hobbies that open up your mind creatively, so that when you come in every day to work gets done.
You're rejuvenated because you didn't just. I know there's been so many times when, like back in the day, when we would, say, well, yeah, like we want to do a short, but like we have to continue running the business, so you have to write it at home. Right. So you would come in the next day just exhausted.
And our features wouldn't, or our shorts wouldn't have been filmed had we not said we actually have to take a couple of weeks here at the company to do this.
Right. And sit down and actually do it.
Right.
And critique it here and then. Because then you go home and you feel accomplished and you're able to unwind some of the stuff.
Right.
Well,
and I think this has made, this type of thinking has made it easier for me when I'm approached by people, and it still happens. Like, well, filmmaking is your hobby. You love it. It's your passion. You should want to do this all the time.
All the time, like every waking second.
And I just flat out tell them, no, I don't.
Yeah, right.
I love what I do, and I love my job, and I love the opportunities it gives me.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic career, and I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah.
But I do not want to do this all the time.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do it for free, because this is my profession that pays my family.
Right.
It pays for our lifestyle so that we can survive.
Right.
And
I mean, and I think that goes in, like, I met chefs. I don't know if this is industry wide, but I have met chefs who they come home And I'm like, you're a chef, like you're making ramen noodles.
Yeah, they're like,
and they're like,
best ramen noodles
dude,
ever.
I don't want to think about food.
Right.
I don't want to make.
Sure.
I don't want to make myself a dish.
I'm sure that doesn't happen every single day of the
No,
week. I'm sure
no.
they're not just living on McDonald's.
Right.
But
sometimes you just don't.
there's just the realities of, you know what?
Yeah.
For this week, I'm just gonna let it chill.
Right.
Kind of a thing. And that is the reality to it. It's like we come in here to do the best work for our clients.
Yep.
And for our business.
Yep.
And for our business means making content that is valuable to others, so other people know we exist and can see what we're doing. And for our clients, it means putting our best creative efforts forward for them to make the best possible product for them.
Right.
And in the interim, when we go home, it's important to still have those outlets.
Right.
And those means of letting your mind release just a little bit from the work that you left at the office.
Right. Because I think it's important to have hobbies for that reason. And that's why I say, like, I like playing video games and it is a distressor, but I feel like that when I do that too much, that's when I'm like, I wasted this night.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, if I spend it, doing some external writing for nothing, writing a campaign or, ticking away at a model or something, I feel way more accomplished.
Establishing that expectation of a healthy work-life balance is really important, and that is one of the things I think that keeps us going here every day, because we don't bring it home, and because we're not carrying that baggage around with us all the time.
Right.
So that when we get here, for 9 hours a day,
you're energized to work.
We're focusing on what needs to get done.
Yeah.
And then when we leave,
whether it's creative, it's all creative, but whether it's for a personal narrative project or a client project.
Right. And then making that time to do it and treating what used to be your hobby now as work.
Right.
Is really the only way to get it done.
Yeah, totally.
From what I've learned.
Absolutely, because otherwise you're going to get jaded and exhausted and,
It's going to be there all the time.
Right.
And no one wants their passion to be there all the time. I don't care what people say.
Yeah.
Anyone who's like, if I could do that my whole life, it would be the best thing ever. It's like, no, it wouldn't. You would eventually learn to hate it because it's there all the time.
Right. It's like I think there's a reason that hobbies exist, and I think
and they're necessary.
And they're super necessary, especially going like through the winter right now. And I know one of the earlier videos that we made was on the winter blues and like how to get through it and stuff when you're getting depressed and you're just sitting at home. And I think hobbies is a huge benefit and a huge way to cut through the winter blues.
Yeah, I love shoveling snow. It's a great hobby.
It can be therapeutic.
I hate it. It's great exercise. Anyway, so I thought it would just be interesting to talk about, how do you, when do you make your hobby a career, and what do you do after you make your hobby a career?
And then what are your other hobbies?
And what are your other hobbies? So anyway, so thanks for talking to me about it. I hope you guys thought this was interesting. Let us know what a couple of your hobbies are, and we'll see you on the next one.
Yeah, see ya.